Dear colleagues, first of all, I want to once again express my deep condolences to the families and friends of those killed as a result of the bloody, barbaric terrorist attack that occurred on March 22. I want to wish a speedy recovery to the wounded. I thank all those who saved people in the most difficult conditions and who helped the victims. During this difficult time, our society has shown an example of true solidarity, cohesion, and mutual support. I know that among those who are now sending words of sympathy to the families of the victims, there are people of different nationalities from all regions of our country, of all ages, including children, school children and students. Those who planned this terrorist attack hope to sow panic and discord in our society. But they met our unity and determination to resist this evil. I ask you to report today on how investigative actions and operational search work are going to identify all those involved in this terrorist attack, its mastermind and organizers. Despite our universal pain and sorrow, compassion and legitimate desire to punish all the perpetrators of this brutal crime, the investigation must be carried out in the most professional manner, objectively, without any political bias. We know that this crime was committed at the hands of radical Islamists, whose ideology the Islamic world itself has been fighting for centuries. But we also see that the United States, through various channels, is trying to convince its satellites and other countries of the world that, according to their intelligence data, there is supposedly no Kyiv trace in the Moscow terrorist attack, that the bloody terrorist attack was carried out by followers of Islam, members of the ISIS organization banned in Russia. We know by whose hands this atrocity was committed against Russia and against its people. We are interested in who the mastermind is. In the course of joint work between our intelligence services and law enforcement agencies, it is necessary to obtain answers to a number of questions. For example, are radical and even terrorist Islamic organizations really interested in striking Russia, which today stands for a fair solution to the escalating Middle East conflict? And how do radical Islamists, who position themselves, by the way, as devout Muslims, professing so-called pure Islam, commit serious atrocities and crimes during the holy month of Ramadan for all Muslims? We have to answer these, as well as other, more specific and professional questions for an objective investigation of the crime committed in Moscow. One thing is absolutely clear. The terrible crime committed on March 22 in the capital of Russia is an act of intimidation, as I have already said. And the question immediately arises: who benefits from this? This atrocity may be only a link in a whole series of attempts by those who have been fighting our country since 2014 at the hands of the neo-Nazi Kyiv regime. And the Nazis, as is well known, never disdained to use the most dirty and inhumane means to achieve their goals, especially today, when their advertised counter-offensive has completely failed. This is already recognized by everyone, it is not disputed. The Russian armed forces hold the initiative along the entire line of combat contact. And all the measures taken by the enemy to stabilize the front do not bring success. Hence the attempts to enter and gain a foothold in our border territories, shelling, including using multiple launch rocket systems, of peaceful neighborhoods, civilian objects, including energy infrastructure, Attempts at missile strikes on the Crimean Bridge and on the Crimean Peninsula itself. Bloody acts of intimidation, such as the terrorist attack committed in Moscow, quite logically fit into this series. The goal, as I already said, is to sow panic in our society and at the same time to show our own population that all is not lost for the Kyiv regime. They only need to carry out the orders of their Western curators, fight to the last Ukrainian, carry out orders from Washington and adopt a new law on mobilization, create something like the Hitler Youth, of course, in its new edition. To do this, beg for new weapons and additional money, a significant part of which can be stolen and put, as is usual in Ukraine today, in your pocket. By the way, back in the 20s of the last century, Ukrainian nationalists had such an association as the Union of Ukrainian Nationalist Youth, which then became part of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. Of course, we also need to answer the question: why did the terrorists try to go to Ukraine after committing the crime? Who was waiting for them there? It is clear that those who support the Kiev regime do not want to be accomplices in terror and sponsors of terrorism. But there are really a lot of questions. I ask that you report to me regularly on the progress of the investigation. I also ask you to inform us about what measures are being taken at the federal and regional levels to support the families of the dead and wounded, and how the work of medical and social services is organized. My colleagues and I have already discussed all these issues several times, but today, as we agreed, we will talk about this in more detail. Please, let's start working. Alexander Ivanovich, I give you my word, dear Vladimir Vladimirovich. The investigative committee continues active work to investigate the criminal case of the terrorist attack in the Crocus City Hall concert hall. The investigation has established a complete chronology of the events that took place on March 22 at 18:54. 4 criminals in a Renault car drove up to the building of the Crocus City Hall concert hall, where they waited for the audience to arrive. At 19:58, terrorists armed with automatic firearms, standing near the Crocus City Hall building, opened fire on visitors who were on the street. Having entered the lobby of the building and then into the concert hall, they continued shooting at all citizens they noticed, regardless of gender and age. Using gasoline they brought with them in plastic bottles, they set fire to the premises, and at 20:11 they left the building. While leaving the parking lot in a car, the criminals at high speed hit pedestrians and a family with 2 young children. The children suffered serious injuries and were hospitalized. All the attackers were detained in the Bryansk region during a pursuit along the highway leading in the direction of the Russian-Ukrainian border. During the inspection, 2 AK-74 assault rifles, more than 500 rounds of ammunition, 28 magazines with cartridges, and bottles with gasoline residues were found and seized at the scene of the incident. The inspection of the crime scene continues with the participation of forensic specialists and experts from the investigative committee of the Russian Federation. In addition, more than 200 inspections, searches and seizures were carried out, during which more than 1,000 different objects relevant to the investigation were seized. During a search in the apartment where the accused lived, in addition to their fingerprints, fragments of fabric and tools that were used in preparing the attack were found. A Makarov pistol without cartridges and a Kalashnikov assault rifle magazine with 30 rounds of ammunition were found in the criminal's car. For all seized items, weapons and ammunition, 90 forensic examinations were ordered: ballistic, genetic, fingerprinting, The 4 perpetrators of the terrorist attack have been charged and taken into custody, all the accused, during interrogation and in court, admitted their guilt and gave detailed testimony about the circumstances of the crime, about the customers, and about the persons who assisted in the preparation of the terrorist attack. The investigation also identified and detained 3 more people who assisted in the preparation of the terrorist attack, who provided an apartment for living, a car for transportation, and who transported money. A petition has been sent to the court to take them into custody in relation to these persons. Initial results of the investigation indicate that this terrorist attack was carefully planned and prepared. The attack killed 139 people. Of these, 75 people have been identified today. Among the dead are 3 children. Identification of the dead continues. Of the total number of deaths, 137 people died at the scene of the terrorist attack. 2 died in medical institutions. 40 people died from gunshot wounds. 2 people died from a combination of gunshot and stab wounds. As a result of the fire, 45 people died from exposure to high temperatures and combustion products. 182 people received injuries of varying severity. 160 forensic and genetic examinations have been ordered and are being carried out to establish the cause of death and to identify the victims. 131 victims and more than 500 witnesses were questioned. From the testimony of eyewitnesses, it follows that the fire in the auditorium occurred as a result of the actions of the accused, who spilled gasoline they brought with them onto the chairs and walls and committed arson. In this regard, the investigation is checking the possibility of violation of safety requirements and the fire extinguishing system in the Crocus City Hall concert hall. For this purpose, consoles, electronic units and control devices for the fire safety system of the concert hall were confiscated. They are aimed at research and to extract information about the operating mode of fire safety systems at the time of the terrorist attack. The contents of the firefighting system server are being studied with the participation of experts to establish the operability and timely response of all fire safety systems. A fire technical examination has been appointed. We work closely with the operational units of the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Russian FSB in a criminal case. The necessary investigative actions are carried out to identify all persons involved in the crime, including those who ordered and organized the crime. The criminal investigation is ongoing. The report is finished.